Let's say we want to display a list of contacts. Each contact can have a name, a status, and an image. So back in Xamarin Studio, first of all, I'm going to create a new folder and call this models. We put all our domain classes here, like the contact class. So let's add a new class here, contact. We don't need a constructor here. I'm just going to give it 3 properties. One is name. The other is status. And the last one is image URL. Now, back in the code behind for our XAML file, instead of using a list of strings, I'm going to use a list of contacts. So first, I'm going to delete this and directly initialize ListView.itemSource here. So new list of contact. I'm going to add 2 contacts here and initialize them directly. The first one is going to be Mosh. And for the image URL, I'm going to use http://lorempixel.com/100/100/people/1. That's it. Now I'm going to copy this line and add another contact here. For the second contact, I'm going to use a different image. So I'm going to change 1 to 2. I'm also going to set the status to, hey, let's talk. Okay? And finally, I'm going to change the name to John. Now, let's see what happens when we run the application. Each item appears as helloworld.contact. Why is that? Because by default, ListView calls the toString method on each object in the list. And the default implementation of the toString method returns the fully qualified name of our class, in this case, helloworld.contact. Now, in this case, for each contact, I want to render the name and the status. So back in our XAML file, first of all, I'm going to remove this separator color. We don't really need this. And add the ending tag of ListView. Now, ListView has a property called item template. So ListView.item template. Just like we have item source, which is our data source, we have item template, which is the template for each item. Inside item template, we add a data template element. Now, inside data template, we can use one of the built-in templates that I'm going to show you in this lecture. Or if you want to have more control over the appearance of each item, we can create a custom template, which is the topic for the next lecture. So the 2 built-in templates that we often use with ListView are text cell and image cell. So text cell. This has a few properties you might be interested in. One is text. Now here I want to render the name of each contact. And for that, I'm going to use a binding expression. So XAML markup extension, binding. Now I'm not going to set the source here, because when we initialize item source, each contact object will be the binding context for each item in the list view. Remember binding context? I covered that in section 2 called XAML Essentials. So there I explained that if you have multiple elements that reference the same object as their binding source, you can clean up the code by setting the binding context on the container. Now here, each contact will be the binding context for each item in the list view. So in our binding expression, we simply use the name of the target property. In this case, name. Now text cell has another property, detail. Again, a binding expression. Now I'm going to set this to status. We also have a couple more properties. One is text color, the other is detail color. But I'm going to leave it up to you to experiment with them. Now let's look at the result. So here's our text cell. You can see each item has a text and a detail. Now, what if we want to add an image here? We have another built-in template, which is called image cell. So I'm going to replace text cell with image cell. And again, we have the text and detail properties, but we also have an additional property, which is image source. Again, we use binding. And I'm going to bind this to image URL property of the contact. Let's look at the result. Okay, it's getting better. Now in the next lecture, I'm going to show you how to create a custom cell to have full control over the appearance of each item.